Well, hello, East Hill family. This is Pastor Ryan here. It's so good to have a few moments with you today as we talk to Steve Pringle of Safe Families. He's the executive director of Safe Families PDX. And Steve, in a quick sense, can you summarize a bit about what Safe Families is and what it does?
So, Safe Families is a um, faith-based social service network of volunteers that stand upstream for families in crisis. So, wrapping around a circle of support. Um, so, imagine 3 weeks, 3 years, 3 weeks, 3 months, 3 years before precipitating events lead to families having to be separated for whatever. And what we're doing is inviting the church to say, let's step in and wrap around these families that are in crisis um, with hospitality, which is the loving of a stranger, and to see if that doesn't just change the trajectory of their lives. So, really, in a sense, what we do is we create extended family like relationships for families who don't have them.
That's interesting. So you're not necessarily after the terrible moment and families have to come in or DHS has to come in and split families up. Instead, you're a little bit more. You're the step before that. You're the last straw or the step before that.
Yeah, it can be a last straw, or it could be further upstream than that. So we discover families that are living in cars that want their kids to be in a safe place. Moms that are working multiple jobs, trying to keep a roof over their kids' heads and food on the table. And what they need is they need extended family. They need people. So really, it's about people who are isolated, and it could be at that last straw. So DHS might call us and say, "Hey, we have a family that we're recommending take advantage of your network," and it's all voluntary on both sides, so they're not requiring it. But yeah, sometimes it is that last straw.
So, can you give us some perspective on what the actual hospitality looks like from a Safe Families perspective?
Yeah, for Safe Families, what uniquely Safe Families is able to do is Safe Families has a network of host homes and host families that host children of families in crisis. And then the rest of the circle is wrapping around both the host family and around the placing family. So it could be delivering meals, and it could be sitting with a 6-year-old who's doing first grade through a computer right now, making sure that he's able to kind of keep focused. Or it could be hosting kids in your home for a week or 2 months while mom and dad take care of whatever it is that they need to take care of in order for them to be back together living underneath the same roof.
Wow, I love that, and I love that it's a little bit gray, that it's not this is what we are doing exactly, but it's actually
Yeah,
meeting the need of the person, and
yeah,
it's also really missional.
yeah, yeah. I mean, I agree. I mean, when we first launched this, that's what it really came about. I mean, I think about my mission personally that has been driving me is that I want to encourage, equip, and inspire people to live lives of purpose, adventure, and discipleship. And this is an adventure. It certainly is discipling, and it's full of purpose. And so it keeps me up, getting up in the morning, ready to go out and say, "Hey, would you consider opening your heart and your home to families who really need you?" It's like going further and saying is, can we move into proximity to the suffering so that we know people's names rather than naming their problems? So that's really what this is. It's about releasing our families to do mission in our neighborhoods.
Oh, so it's knowing people's names rather than naming their problems. I think everyone needs to get a piece of paper out and write that down. That's incredible. So tell us a bit about what led you, Steve, to being the executive director for Safe Families. Tell us that story.
Yeah, yeah. So I spent 20 years in Christian education, was the principal of a high school, and literally was sitting at Beaverton Foursquare and listening to the story of Abraham being called to leave. And I leaned over to my wife and I said, "I think we have to leave." And she thought I was crazy and said, "Can it wait till the end of the service?" Um, and we did. We left a really cool career, and I'm a really good number two. I didn't want to be number one of anything. Um, and we left, and we didn't know where we were going. And left in July, and then took on a work that was a mobilizing the church in Beaverton around families in crisis. And the question is how can the church, and this was the question that was put before us, is how can the church go long and deep and dirty with people rather than just transactional, one top, and which is necessary, the needs, the resourcing, those things. But how could, if we want to see transformation happen and in a community, and I believe it happens through the work of the Holy Spirit, through the local church, but what are the tools and what was the backbone that was needed? And what we were given an opportunity, or the board gave me an opportunity to basically blind date the church and the community to find out what's missing. And what was missing was what is being done around, at that point in time there were 1,500 homeless kids in the Beaverton School District. There's around 8,000 kids experiencing housing instability or homelessness in the greater Portland area. How can we stand upstream? And to be honest, in the midst of trying to create something else, not knowing that there was this thing called Safe Families out there, we were trying to create something else, but inviting a whole lot of people to help shape it and collaborate. And then we found Safe Families. And Safe Families as a model is a proven model that sees transformation happen in families who are in crisis, but it transforms families who serve in this way. It's just a two-way street of transformation.
Wow. That's pretty amazing. That falls right in line with East Hill Church's mission for 2020 and our vision, for being sent this year. That's incredible. Steve, can you give us some numbers, some specifics about what sort of reach Safe Families has in our community and how you've impacted our community from a numbers perspective?
Yeah. So over the course of the last maybe 4 years, there's been around 300, and I'm not sure exactly the number, but over 300 hostings of kids from families in our community by host families, volunteer host families. During COVID, I mean, we've had to get a little bit more creative and pivot a little bit the way we're wrapping around families, right? And so when a hosting can be avoided and we can still help, our key thing is about keeping kids safe and families together. And we do that with this temporarily short-term hosting, but we're doing other things. We're doing day hostings. We're doing what we call just family friending, where it's just like I described that first grader. Can you open up your home for one day a week and have this first grader come in and just make sure that he's having success as he's trying to navigate, homeschooling or whatever we call this season right during COVID. So the reach has been, I think we mobilize 800 volunteers every year around families. But I will tell you is that our reach, we're just scratching the surface. We're just scratching the surface. If there's 4 times as many folks that are entering into TANF and the need for, resources through self-sustainability, the need is getting bigger and bigger. In fact, what we're hearing is that there's this tidal wave coming as a result to this COVID pandemic and the economic impacts on families. Coming up on December 31st is the end of the moratorium on evictions. And so we're going to see lots and lots of families in need and in crisis. So when I look at our dashboard right now, our dashboard of needs has never been more full. In a time when it is more difficult to say yes and understand. It's a reasonable thing that families, that's like, is this something that we can do? Is this, is this safe? It's risky. But I don't know. It looks to me a lot like in the times where we read about in church history, right, where the church went into the areas where the plague was, and the church stepped out. And I see the church doing this all over the city, but this is a way that actually to do this with our families and releasing our families to be an extension of that.
So for our Heart for the Mission offering, our vision is to address people's practical needs locally and globally so that they can experience the love of God and know that they're seen. In light of that vision, can you spell out a bit of how that connects with Safe Families?
Yeah, there are families in your neighborhood and mine. My wife and I were introduced to a young lady who lives 1.25 miles from our house who needed somewhere to be. So practically, it could be about opening up your home, becoming a host family, saying is that, these kiddos can come stay with us and we will connect with and know mom and dad. I mean, in the story, you look at it and go, if true religion is really about loving, widows and orphans and taking care of them, and it's like in our story, the orphan is mom and dad. They're isolated. They don't have people, and um, so right in your neighborhood, you could be a host family. Right in your neighborhood, you could support someone who is hosting. You could be a mentor to a mom. Um, this is a great opportunity through small groups. When someone says, I think, it's sort of like saying, I want to become a foster family, right? It's not foster light. It's just one step away from foster and upstream of foster. But to say, what's great about this is that you get to know the parent. It's not separating the parents from the foster family. Like in safe families, it's wrapping together, and a community group can come around a family together and walk with them over time. So there's lots of, it seems like it just fits right into what you just said as far as living out. Our primary thing is about keeping kids safe. We're abuse and neglect prevention and foster care deflection and keeping families together. We've got like a 95% return to parent rate. That's our focus. But we've got ultimate hopes, right? It's not an ulterior motive that we're going to come in and tell them about Jesus and they're not going to see it coming. Our ultimate hope is they're going to encounter Jesus through the life on life work of volunteers, just people saying yes and loving well.
Okay, that's really good. A portion of the offering we're taking is going to go to Safe Families. Steve, can you tell us a bit about what Safe Families is going to use that money, how they're going to use that money?
Yeah, well, there are a lot of opportunities to get involved with Safe Families. The key thing is finding host families, but not everybody is able to say, hey, we've got capacity to host children in our home. But when somebody does, putting a team around them, because one of the things we don't want our host families to serve in isolation. Isolation is the key factor of why these families in crisis are where they're at, is because they don't have people. So what we want to do is model is that we do serve together in community, and then we're creating community around families. And so becoming a host family, a family coach, which is someone who comes alongside that host family and works with our family coach supervisor, does the check-ins for safety checks. So we say that this is a volunteer-led, professionally supported, and locally owned ministry. So it'd be a ministry owned by East Hill that is volunteer-led and then supported by the backbone of our team. So you could be a family coach. You could say, I could do transportation, drive carpool, could drop off a meal. Is Thursday the hardest day of your week to a host family? We're going to drop off a meal. Or maybe it's wrapping around the placing mom and dad, and what are the things that they need? Maybe it's helping them sort out their finances and go through and help them create a budget. Or we've seen communities come around families that were homeless and living in a car, but they were working and they just needed someone to help them get into an apartment and help sort out some of that stuff. And we've seen some really cool things happen. So there's not really a limit on the way you can be involved, because really it's like, if you do want to be part of an extended family for someone, it's like, what would that look like in your own extended family?
Wow, that falls right within our missional call as a church that we're sent this year, 2020 especially, that we're sent. That's our mission for this year. And it really this story impacts me personally, Steve. And I want to encourage anybody right now, if maybe this is impacting you as well, and this falls in line with maybe something that you felt called to for a while, but just didn't know how to walk that calling out, take a few minutes and go to safefamiliespdx.org. I'm going to show that information right here on the bottom of the screen, and look through their testimonies. Look through how this ministry is actually impacting our community right now, not in theory, not in the future, but right now. Take a few minutes and do that. And Steve, as we wrap up the interview, are there any parting words that you want to say to the East Hill Church family?
Yeah, well, just thank you. Gratitude is just one of the driving core values of who we are, and we want to live lives of gratitude, and we're grateful. I also want to say Merry Christmas, and we're grateful for East Hill. It's been super fun getting to know your team over the last several months, and really excited to see what's going to happen. The impact of East Hill is just growing, and may God's glory be shining upon you, and we just are really grateful for you.
All right, Steve. Well, thank you so much for taking time to be here, and thanks for inspiring me with a bit of your vision with your ministry with Safe Families. Thank you so much.
Thank you.